If you have a bro of some kind in your life, you may have already heard the devastating news that I'm going to share with you. On June 17, 2024, the tobacco giant Philip Morris International announced they were pausing all sales of ZYN nicotine pouches online after being served a subpoena from the Office of the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. The latest move is a result of outrageous government overreach targeted at the smokeless nicotine industry and fits with a nationwide witch hunt against a drug that stands to benefit society as we become more permissive to the worst substances and crimes around us. The subpoena by the Office of the Attorney General stems from a 2021 law passed by the local jurisdiction titled, quote, the Flavored Tobacco Product Prohibition Amendment Act of 2021. It's designed to keep tobacco out of the hands of minors under the age of 16. Now, the law fits with the overall federal government witch hunt against flavored vapes that's been spurred by the FDA. That is a law we now know to be totally ineffective and in fact counterproductive, resulting in many under 20-year-old nicotine users switching to straight-up combustible cigarettes and also resulting in no change whatsoever to existing nicotine habits. So we have a law that was born of a completely false moral panic. It's counterproductive and it applies only to a single city. And if it was just that, I guess I could live with it. But because of the total insanity of the way that smokeless nicotine is regulated in the United States, this means Washington, D.C., one of the most poorly run cities in the country, can now shut down all online ZYN sales for the United States based upon a subpoena of suspicion that proves nothing, that some flavored nicotine product may have been improperly sold in the district and not even a vape. The reason is that Philip Morris is terrified of having the same thing happen to ZYN that happened to Juul. They would rather nerf sales for the entire product online and show regulators that they will have to be in 100% compliance rather than risk some ban that's down the line. Again, it's not even fair, because the last company that preemptively did this was Juul, which was still punished by the FDA under totally false pretenses, only to have them reverse themselves years later, as I recently covered. Furthermore, this Attorney General's office, which is behind this, is at best incompetent and at worst a straight-up crime enabler himself. Under his leadership, Washington, D.C. has defied all expectations of other major metropolitan areas and actually had a higher murder rate in 2023 than the year before, somehow beating similar cities that are all across the East Coast. Even worse, having a bad murder rate, this Attorney General himself and his predecessor have contributed to a major scourge which is very unique to the district. As even here, liberals in the Washington Post are now acknowledging, a massive spike in violent crime perpetrated on children is being enabled by the Attorney General's decision to dismiss violent and gun-related charges against juveniles. As usual with these pro-crime policies, it's in the language of leniency and race, and as always in reality it means an epidemic of actual violent juveniles against fellow children has now erupted so badly that city elders are begging the city to actually do something about it. This is directly attributable to this AG, whose office has dismissed more than a third of juvenile cases, many of whom are involved in carjacking. Who wants to guess what people arrested for carjacking do after charges are dropped against them? You would guess right. It means carjacking is now, in DC, one of the highest rates in the entire United States. Much of it perpetrated by the very people this guy is working to actively release. Now, not only that, Washington, D.C. is now chock full of marijuana shops, including one less than a block from the very studio I am recording this right now. There has been an explosion of pot shops across the city. There has been zero pressure from the Attorney General or the city on allegedly attempting to keep this out of the hands of kids or similar fines that they're leveling at the tobacco industry. So as usual, we have an insane double standard here. What weed smokers complained about in the 2000s about how cigarettes got a pass, but they were somehow persecuted, that's gone. Everything is flipped. People have somehow decided marijuana, itself a dubiously useful drug that has exploded teen psychosis and itself pollutes the literal air around us, is now more permissible than flavored nicotine pouches which don't even have cancer-causing tobacco in them. It has no link to adverse health effects and is one of the most powerful nootropics known to man. Somebody make it make sense. You can't. In the meantime, this is a national trend. You had Senator Chuck Schumer, a man who wants to legalize weed nationwide, call ZYN a, quote, pouch packed with problems, who is now pushing the FDA and FTC to crack down on them. The so-called war on drugs is coming to a close. It is instead now a war on nicotine. You get to choose what society that you want to live in. Is it one where people use tobacco-free nicotine pouches, or one where people get shot left and right and the air reeks of weed? I think I know which one I choose. So Krystal?
Hey guys, obviously I had a lot of thoughts on what Saagar had to say there. So if you want to see my thoughts on this monologue and every other Saagar monologue, make sure you subscribe at breakingpoints.com.